Now, if you've been around the channel for a minute, you know one of our most popular videos was on my FJ60 Land Cruiser. Now, one of the best parts of the channel, we hear your feedback, we take it to heart. We're going to go much deeper with the FJ60 and FJ62. And with this one, we pulled out all the stops. We're going to bring out the big guns for you. We have an exciting video for you today. We're going to sit down and talk with Jonas from Mize Adventures YouTube channel. Now, Jonas is not only a fellow vintage four-wheel drive lover and Land Cruiser aficionado, but like I said, he has his own successful YouTube channel, so definitely make sure to check him out in the link in the description. Now, Jonas will be giving us his expert opinion on Land Cruisers and what to expect with each platform, like my favorite, Bring a Trailer, but others like Cars and Bids, Auto Trader, Haggerty, others. The choices to pick up one of these badass rigs are endless, but each platform has its pluses and minuses, and we'll get into that. We're also going to get into what to expect from an FJ60 and FJ62 from a mechanical and OEM originality standpoint. Now, this is a must-watch video if you're thinking about buying an FJ60 or FJ62. Before we launch into our sit down with Jonas, I want to play a few short clips from one of my favorite episodes on Mize Adventures, just to show you the kind of awesome content to expect with this channel.
So we're gonna go do a brief tour of what this truck is before she goes up online. She is completed and she drives better than any truck I've ever driven from this era.
Love the content here, great material. You can also definitely see Jonas's passion for Land Cruisers. That's why we invited him on the channel. Before we get the proper introduction with Jonas, let's give his channel a shout out here. Find him, make sure to subscribe at Mize Adventures. Give him a look, give him a follow. Welcome to the channel, Jonas.
Hey Trey, thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to dig into some of this Toyota Land Cruiser content that you've been putting together and talk about the different platforms that they keep on showing up all over the country.
Absolutely, and I think you and I, we've had conversations on the phone too. The kind of marketplace now, it used to be kind of, you know, what's in your backyard, wherever you're living locally. Everything is national now with the advent of some of these, you know, websites and platforms. So really excited to, you know, talk to you about that, talk to you about really kind of the nuts and bolts. I think we're starting kind of a new series here. We'll have awesome people like yourself on, and we hope you'll come back to talk to us today. We're going to focus on FJ60s. I think it's definitely a passion of both of ours. But before we kind of launch into that, I'd love for you to comment on, you know, the clip we just showed, what was going on there. I love the finished product, getting that all buffed up, beautiful FJ60. Talk to us about kind of how you got into these Land Cruisers, the work you're doing, and then a little bit about that specific clip as well.
Sure, Trey. Yeah, so that truck was really one of my most favorite trucks. I think at this point I have a batting average of like 50 or 60 trucks in the last 3 years, wow, which is crazy. And that truck came to me. I met a guy at this local meetup, and he's like, man, I need a motor. Long story short, I ended up buying the truck. And a lot of times that's what's happening in my channel. I'm going out, I'm buying people's forgotten projects, or just, hey, get grandpa's truck out of the backyard, and I'm bringing it back and I'm breaking it down and assessing what's up with the vehicle. That truck most definitely needed a motor. If you watch the actual segments of that episode, you'll see that I tried to save the motor that was in there and it just wasn't possible. So slapped a motor in it, and at the time I didn't really know that that truck was going to be my first Bring a Trailer truck. So that was my first and only truck I put on Bring a Trailer. What was important to note on that episode was that what goes into these trucks that people are putting on Bring a Trailer. You don't always see that, and so you get a lot of the criticized comments on there saying, hey, what's going on with this truck? And you know, I think a lot of times people don't look and say, hey, is it hard to get these parts? I think later in this video we're going to maybe touch base on a couple trucks from Bring a Trailer, and I'll point some things out that are, you know, there should be easy to find and, you know, replace and give it that extra special touch, but sometimes you can't find it, and that's one of the kind of the fun and headache things of these vehicles is tracking down the parts and making it as good as you possibly can make it.
Yeah, I think that's a really great segue into also what we're going to talk about here. So, you have this truck, like I showed, like kind of that last like 20, 30 seconds, really that cleaned up version looked immaculate. Maybe you could speak to your experience with Bring a Trailer because there's so many options out there now. With my channel, I focus a lot on Bring a Trailer, and it's for a couple of reasons. One, really great pictures. Generally, I always kind of talk about with the channel. You get a minimum kind of best in class. It's like 100 pictures minimum. It definitely includes undercarriage pictures, engine photos. Oftentimes they have videos as well. What was your experience with Bring a Trailer? And then we can kind of jump into what you see, comparing that to other platforms as well.
Sure, yeah. So Bring a Trailer is one of those mystery like platforms, and the reason why I wanted to put this truck on there was just to see what happened. Again, when you watch the episodes in full, you'll see that I put a lot of time and effort into that truck, and I thought it really showed. What's great about Bring a Trailer is that there's nothing that's hidden from there. It's not like you're showing up to some guy's backyard and saying, "Hey, it's rust free," and you're like, you crawl under there, and it's most definitely not rust free. Bring a Trailer reveals all of that stuff. You don't get just a lot of the later platforms like Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, and so on and so forth. They only allow 24 pictures max. Bring a Trailer lets you get video. If you're close enough, you can go drive the truck. It was really cool to be able to respond with the people that are actually buying your truck. They ask questions for the most part. They were very avid about the FJ60 and knew what they were looking at. Some guys didn't, and they were questioning kind of funny, but that's what you're going to get across the board with any vehicle when people are first getting into the hobby or any type of model like the FJ60. Overall, it was a pretty good experience. It was kind of sad I didn't see it go for what I really wanted it to go for price-wise, but that's kind of the auction life. Sometimes you're going to get vehicles, you look at them, you go, how did you get $100,000 for that vehicle? And then how did that truck sell for $15,000? Depends on who's on the platform. It depends on how good it looks. Did they touch all those little detailed things? I can look back at that truck that I sold and said, hey, look, I could probably have done this and gotten more. One thing about Bring a Trailer that's very important to mention is that they do have reserves when you're applying to get your vehicle in there. You do need to kind of be upfront with where you think a reserve is, and sometimes Bring a Trailer will come back and say, well, no, we want it to be at this reserve. So you have to kind of go with that and fall on your sword a little bit and say, okay, unfortunately, I went with their reserve and it sold for just right over the reserve, which was one of those, man, hang your hat on the nail moments and walk out the door and just say, all right, it's going to a good home, hopefully. But other than that, it was cool to just kind of experience a platform as a whole. And I think maybe in the future, there is a truck right behind me that I might be posting on Bring a Trailer here soon. But that's to be determined.
Nice. Which one? We're looking at both.
It's just this truck here with the black grill. It's also featured on my YouTube channel from the point where I picked it up in somebody's backyard, kind of similar to the other tan one I saw on Bring a Trailer, to where it looks now. It didn't get a motor swap. The motor's actually very healthy and a turnkey truck. The other one is a V8 swapped Chevy truck that's seen better days. It needs a roof. It needs a whole lot of work. It's borderline parts truck, but I think I'm going to bring it back just to enjoy it for the sake of it. Maybe make it a winter vehicle,
Nice, nice. Well, we look forward to seeing and following your FJ60 on Bring a Trailer. You hit on a couple points I'd like to expand on too. So you talk about the reserve. A lot of folks that may be watching the video don't have the experience with Bring a Trailer. They see these cars being sold through. So it's interesting too, and you may have hit on this, but like the reserve, you tell them what you want it to be and they can kind of accept it or not, or it's somewhat negotiable is what I've heard as well. So let's say you bring a car to the platform, you say it's worth 25, they say, well, would you consider selling it for 23? There's kind of a back and forth on that. There's also options that are no reserve, which I always find extremely exciting when you're watching those, because literally whatever the end point is, that's what it's selling for. And generally you'll see some lower price vehicles that are selling on Bring a Trailer with no reserve, but from time to time you'll see a very exclusive high-end vehicle listed, no reserve, just adding to the excitement. I think there was one that I covered with one of my shorts a few weeks ago. It was a 20 to 30,000 mile JDM Land Cruiser, I believe a 5-speed, and it went for, I believe, like 65, 70. And that was a no reserve auction, super exciting. But one of the other things you hit on too is the timing of everything. So like some of these auctions, if they don't end on the right day, they're not going to bring as high of a value. So this particular one, the kind of comment gallery was talking about, oh, it's going to go for 80, 85, whatever. It went for around 60. And honestly, a lot of that probably had to do with timing too. So I think that's a really great call out. And the other part you talked about with Bring Trailer as well is kind of a pro and a con. So as a seller, your vehicle is going to essentially be picked apart. There's no real area of the car. You know, we talked about undercarriage, that every photo, you know, every angle of this vehicle is, you know, has a picture of it, especially if there's video, which is awesome for buyers. But that's kind of another kind of pro and con, is, you know, your vehicle will come under heavy scrutiny. But on the flip side of that, for a buyer, that's great. You know what you're getting. You touched on that. It's unlike, you know, I think of back in the days where really the only sources were like OUTTRO or something. You get some good pictures, but they can basically put lipstick on a pig. No pun intended with like a 55 pig, but you know, looks really clean, shined up, whatever, but complete rust bucket underneath. So I think those are two important call-outs too. I was curious too, kind of shifting gears a little bit. So, you know, you look at Brain Trailer, there's other sites like Cars and Bids, there's a lot of prominent ones, Auto Tempest. You know, if somebody was in the market, you know, we're kind of doing some education here. What are those things from your kind of mechanical expertise that you would look at on a 60 or maybe a 62? And what are some of those kind of pitfalls to avoid?
Sure. Yeah. So bring a trailer, again, for somebody like me that's bringing them back to life, it's not really my platform. Of course, it's so much fun, just like you enjoy going through and just dreaming about these trucks. But where I usually see a lot of these trucks pop up is on Facebook Marketplace. It's the most populated source for these trucks, and mainly all vehicles, especially if you're trying to pinpoint something that's maybe local. A lot of times when I go pick up vehicles for the channel or just for the business that I'm running called Barnyard Cruisers, I will go a couple states over, and it's really exciting to kind of build that into, hey, I'm going to go see my brother in New York and go pick up a truck there. Things like Craigslist is really dead. Occasionally you'll find something on there that's maybe an older gentleman that doesn't know how to use Facebook, and Craigslist was always this place. So it is not a completely just throw it out the door website. I would definitely check it if you're looking for something. Cars and Bids, I've never had a lot of experience with that. I do really appreciate the owner and the guy that runs it, Doug DeMiro. I think he's got a heck of a great head on his shoulders when it comes to cars. So I think from that, he just automatically gets a pass. I think I would love to try out that platform. And I think in previous conversations, Trey, we spoke about that he doesn't really have a lot of that older stuff on there from what we were seeing. And it would be really cool to kind of bring that to the head there. There aren't really other platforms per se that I could probably suggest other than that, except for word of mouth. A lot of times I'm so into the trucks. Like right now I have 18 Toyota Land Cruiser FJ60s, and a lot of them were bought by word of mouth. And if you're really trying to get into the nitty gritty of what's wrong with the truck, where are the rust areas, get into a local club around your city or town. A lot of people say, oh, it's not local. Even if there isn't a club, there's a guy like me that's somewhere close that you can just call, ask some questions, and he's the guy. If he doesn't have an extra truck, I'm sure he's on his Sunday afternoons. He knows where all the trucks are in the backyard. So that's another option for you to find those real hidden gems that could potentially be bringer trailer trucks in the future. They're still out there. Trust me, a lot of people don't think they are, and they're getting super expensive, but you can still find them for a decent price if you know what you're looking for. So do your research before you get to those platforms as well.
Yeah, that's a good call out as well. I'm actually, I think it comes down to kind of like networking. You do it in business, you do it, you know, just life in general. I'm in discussions with a gentleman about an FJ55, and I kind of found out about this word of mouth. And one of the things you and I had talked about at one point was just like, what are those kind of key things to look at? So like, pending it's not a local truck, like, are there, would you say there's maybe 4 to 5, there's probably a lot more, but let's say, the top 4 to 5 areas, like, hey, you found something on Facebook, even bring a trailer where you have those pictures. Where do you dig deeper? What are kind of the key, the most important things you're going to look for? For example, is it, rust-free undercarriage, body frame? Do you have kind of an order that you look at when you're looking to acquire a truck? And same thing, advice to the audience.
150%. I've learned from trial and error. My first FJ60, I traded some cash plus my Deerhard Forerunner, 1995 Forerunner for my first FJ. I always wanted one. Got it up on the rack at a local shop the day after I got it, and they said, your frame is being held together by your gas tank. It's rotten. I bought it at night and at the rain, so don't do that when it's raining and at night. You may be in love with them, but don't do that. So my points to look at is, if you're going to look at one of these trucks, area doesn't always have to do with a lot of it. California trucks, what I mean, like, you're going out of California, you're going to buy a truck that's rust-free, frame is immaculate, but the interior is probably going to be roached. If you come to the East Coast where I am, you're going to have the opposite problem. Interiors are mint, and every body panel and frame is going to be trashed. So that leads me to what I'm looking at first. So usually when I get to a truck, I will crawl under and look at the frame. There's a crossbar that connects the 2 shock tower mounts to the axle. A lot of times that rusts out. Moving to the C channel, it's a like covered C channel that kind of is riveted to the side of the frame. If that's rippled, a lot of times it gets moisture back there and sends holes right through it, and that's the start of a terrible chain of events. Then moving back to where the bumper mounts to the back of the frame, same on an FJ62, the just moisture gets behind that bumper and rusts that whole area. So that little like boxed area, if that's gone, you probably want to run away from that truck. I've seen a lot of people do some miraculous things when it comes to that, but those are the 3 main areas I look for. Everything else is fixable. I mean, a lot of times you can look at the body panels and go, okay, I can just go buy that online. With these Land Cruisers, you can't buy anything new. There are some aftermarket things on there, but you're looking at fitment issues, just like any classic car across the board. A lot of that aftermarket stuff is going to still have to be modified. So you're either going to pay a body guy to modify the brand new part, or you're going to pay for an original rust-free panel. Things like the front fenders on these trucks always go. A lot of times right below where the door hinges, you'll see it's gone. The rocker panel right behind the rear door right there, they call it the dog leg. There's also like a snake blinder that sits there that a lot of times is gone. Moving back to the back of the truck, rear quarters gone, and tailgate. So tailgates are extremely rare, and if you can find one that is rust-free, buy it. It's worth more than a lottery ticket these days. But especially those areas are very heavily spots you need to check for bodywork. Bring a magnet with you to your purchase. Put some, hear the metal that's there. Make sure it's metal. I've seen some really interesting things when I'm pulling these trucks apart. Interior-wise, you want to check for a rip on the driver's side seat. That's very common. The dashes are cracked. They don't sell them new. I can go on and on and on, Trey. I could probably talk your ear off, but those are the main things that I would be checking from a body standpoint. A lot of the interior stuff you can still kind of get from people like me that sell parts as a full-time job.
And like you said, even finding replacement parts, body panels, OEM, non-OEM parts becomes more and more difficult the older these get. So, awesome information for the channel here. I am curious, before I let you go here, what would you say, you talked about the FJ60 we may see upcoming on Bring a Trailer. Any other projects that we might see on your channel coming soon?
Sure, yeah. I got a ton of content. And these days, unlike my previous episodes that I've had, I haven't been releasing stuff weekly just because the projects have just been getting bigger. The last video that I featured was a V8 350 dropped into an FJ62 front end swapped to a 60 and 60 interior. So very kind of a hodgepodge little bit of a vehicle, but super cool, unique build and great video. So that series is ongoing. working on getting that truck back together. It's been a 3-year project. Also, in the midst of doing a body swapped 60 series that has a frame from out west with a fuel injected 2F, as well as a beautiful Florida red body that's going onto that. And then we're going to be doing all the stuff that I always do on my channels, going through the interior. Again, I sell parts full time, and I have a whole inventory of stuff that I can choose from. So the best of the best stuff goes into these vehicles that I'm bringing back to basically put back on the market for somebody to enjoy for many years to come.
We actually talked about a 1985 FJ60 that just sold on Bring a Trailer. One that I was admiring. It's similar to mine. It's red. Had some good work done to it. Had some pretty awesome eye-catching decals on it. I'd love to get your feedback on it. Did you have a chance to look at that? And if so, I'd love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, you sent over 3 pretty good trucks, but this 60 series is definitely just a tasteful take on what these trucks can become. It's certainly not OEM. It's pretty close, but definitely this is kind of the style that you see with these trucks these days. The decals is kind of a new thing. You'll see Cruzetti cruisers out in California doing those. I think that's where it really took off. Obviously in the 80s, they had those really cool decals. Occasionally you can get an older vehicle like that. Red, my favorite color. The first truck I ever saw way back when that really spawned the whole thing for me was red. So yes, I have a special place in my heart for a red truck. One thing I didn't mention earlier is that this truck, you know, it's from Texas, dry state. You don't even need to really think about those frame and body panels as much as you would if it was being sold in Chicago or, you know, Massachusetts. I wouldn't even touch those trucks. I'd be very sketched out. So that is kind of makes me feel better when I looked at this truck. Moving into like the interior things, again, the truck is well deserved. It sold for $31,000. I think that's a really great price for a truck of this level, and that's pretty kind of where the market is right now. It's for a very high level truck like this. 31,000 is well deserved. But a couple other things that could have brought that price up, in my opinion, if I was looking at it and saying, hey, I have $40,000 to spend on this vehicle. A couple things, especially if you're like an OEM guy. I'm not a completely OEM, but I do like things to be correct. So I noticed that it had an electric fuel pump. You know, why do they do that? Why do they go from that in the engine bay? The window cranks don't seem to be factory. They do make some new ones that you can tell that they're not quite OEM. This one might be OEM, but I just couldn't really tell from the pictures. So that was one thing. The seatbelt female side where you actually click into the belt, those are all broken. Across the board, that's something you see in these old trucks. Again, you can't buy those new. And if you do find them that are uncracked and in really exceptional shape, they're expensive. So I understand why I didn't go and try to find some new ones there. The carpet kit looks like it's been put in pretty decently. A couple things, if you look on the pedal side, you can see that it kind of could have gone a little higher. There's actual like Velcro that the carpet's supposed to kind of stick to. They cut it a little low. Again, I've been there, and those carpets are a pain in the butt to put in. So as long as it looks good and tasteful for the owner, then, you know, and it's clean, yeah, all good. It's missing like a battery hold down. Wheel wells in the back. We're supposed to be, they have carpet, and that usually comes with a carpet kit. It should be vinyl. Again, if you're looking for that OEM look. Things like it's definitely been painted, and I knew that by looking at the door jams. The door jams should have been plated. They are painted straight over. So whoever painted that, painted right over that stuff. The choke cable knob is cracked, and the fuse panel there might be factory, but I couldn't tell. They're making a lot of 3D printed stuff for these trucks these days, but it's not the correct color to go with the dash. Again, there's a couple other things that I could kind of go into on this truck, but that's just me really being nitpicky. Again, this truck is beautiful. I thought it just blew my mind when you sent it to me. I was like, oh my gosh, you've got to review this one on your channel. Again, really well deserved at the 31,000, and you're gonna expect to probably pay somewhere around that for a truck that's this beautiful.
Yeah, it is a really, you know, fine example. Like I said, really caught my eye. And, you know, there were a few of those items that I caught as well, but that's where, like, you know, kind of you've done this for years and years. Obviously, you've got the two behind you. That's where that experience kicks in, and you kind of know the right areas to look at. You know, it's easy for the untrained eye to overlook the things like the carpet fit, or, you know, is something OEM or not. So love getting that perspective. one of the things I always talk about on the channel too, there's a lot of really knowledgeable people like you that will comment on little things like that. You talked about like the female side of the seatbelt. That's something I've been seeing more too, is people calling out. Like I saw a Scout 80 restoration the other day, and it had no seatbelts, and that would be something I'd overlook. I don't have kids or anything, so I probably don't care. I have my 60 has working functional seatbelts, but honestly, I don't really use them that much. It doesn't have an airbag. It's it's not probably the safest car. That's okay. That's not what it's for. It's around town, whatever. But yeah, I mean, that's that level of detail, attention of detail. That's why we had you on the channel. So really appreciate your perspective here. We're definitely gonna have you back on. And like I said, as I kind of go, look a little bit further with this FJ55, I'd love to get your perspective on that too. So, thank you again for coming on the channel. This is a first, I think, for me, but also for you as well. We'll definitely have to do this again. But appreciate your, coming on, and thank you again, Jonas.
So let me know, what do you think of our sit down with Jonas from Mize Adventures? Also, like I said before, we are a growing channel. If you like the video and the content, make sure to like and subscribe. And keep in mind, the best part of subscribing to the channel, you're going to get these daily shorts of these badass four-wheel drives. Thanks again for watching. See you next time for more vintage four-wheel drives.